And when my mom started calling me, that like feeling I had in my stomach of not wanting to disappoint her again, and then the look on my sister's face when I finally did meet up with them just really tore me down. I just couldn't stand to disappoint them once again, and then seeing the look on her face and thinking about what my grandmother will think.
Welcome to The Bright Side of Life, a podcast where people share their personal stories of struggles, pain, and grief, but through all of that, they are still able to find the joys in life. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa. Today I am talking with my friend Deanna, who's going to share her story of drug and alcohol addiction and her road to recovery and what sobriety looks like for her now. Deanna, thank you so much for being here. So when did your addiction start?
So when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with like a rare disease, which is only my first rare disease that I've been diagnosed with in my life. And I had to have like major surgeries. So I was then put on to Percocets and then Vicodin and so on and so forth for many years. I had my first surgery and then they had to reverse that. So it was like a 4-year-long process of going through all of the surgeries and the meds and everything. So I would say at like 12 years old, I was already, kind of addicted to that opiate feeling. It wasn't long after that I started drinking and smoking weed, and it just kind of progressed over the years. By the time I was 16, I was a full-blown alcoholic, and that's just where it started.
What was the disease that you had?
When you're a child, it's called leg, calves, and Perthes disease. And then if you're over the age of 18, it's called avascular necrosis. So I had it as a child, and then it came back when I was 19, and I had to have a full hip replacement then.
And how old were you when I was working with you? Because I know you're younger than me.
That was pre-hip replacement, right? God, I don't even remember. I want to say I was like 18, 19. So that was pre-hip replacement, because I believe that was before I moved to California. I had my hip replacement when I lived in California in 2010.
Okay, man, thinking about all that. What do you think was your biggest addiction? Was it the pain pills, or was it the alcohol, or was it both?
At that age, I would say both. But then, when I hit 18, I moved out of my parents' house and into an apartment. And that was when I was with a young lady that I did not know before I moved in with her, but she was doing heroin. So that was when I started doing the heroin. And that was definitely the biggest addiction. But I'd like to say like I was a full-blown alcoholic before that. So it wasn't like that was, I've been an addict since I was 12.
Right.
Like I've been an addict my whole life, but physically using, I say since I was 12. I learned at 12 years old how to con my mom into getting more pain meds,
Yeah.
Which was not a good habit to learn at such a young age.
If you didn't have this rare disease and you were never introduced to pain pills, do you think the alcoholism would have eventually started anyway? Or do you feel that no?
I'm not really positive. I've definitely sat back and like thought about that in the past. My thing is addiction is more or less something that you're born with. It's not really something that like you learn, which is something that, people debate about all the time. I wholeheartely believe that, because I believe that I had addict behavior way before, I had my first Percocet. It's the manipulation sides of it, and the conning people into getting what you want, and the smooth talking aspects of it. Like those are all parts of addiction that people wouldn't even realize, whether you're even addicted to drugs, or you're addicted to, conning people, or you're addicted to being the best, or, like all of those aspects that like you can have addictions to.
Was anybody in your family, did they struggle with any addiction?
Immediate family, like blood related, no. But I grew up with my stepfather that was a huge alcoholic, and he did cocaine and crack and things like that from 6 years old on. And I watched him physically abuse my mother. And when he finally did get clean was when my sister was born when I was 10. So it was already years of that. I don't know if it's watching those behaviors or what, but I mean, my mom was the person that could have a drink and then stop. My dad never, like, he used to tell, like, he tried weed once. He wasn't really a big fan, like, he never had any issues. My grandparents are saints. Like, it wasn't really any blood relation to me, no.
And your addiction with the pills was obviously for the pain management. Do you feel that alcoholism was that physically like covering up your pain, or was it like some kind of other pain that you were suffering from, like mental, or what you went through, with living with your stepdad and seeing all of that?
I definitely believe that the alcohol and the continuing pain pills was just then me covering up the things that I didn't want to remember in my childhood. I mean, not that I had a horrible childhood. I was a spoiled brat, but I still had, like, there were still things that I saw that a child shouldn't see. And I do fully believe that I was insecure with myself. I didn't want to remember certain things. I also wanted to just feel loved by a man. My stepfather was never there for me. Not saying that my dad's a horrible guy. He's the best guy on this whole entire earth. He's my hero, but he lived very far away in California. I saw him maybe once a year for a week, like he's a Marine. He didn't have that nurturing, caring love, he was more of a tough love guy. So at 16, I started dating a man that was 24. Like, I just always searched for that love. The alcohol with him, he was an alcoholic. I never gave myself a chance.
So was that who you were dating when we worked together?
No, I then when I first started working there, I was dating a man that was 36, and I was about 18 or 19 when I was working there. And he actually went to jail, and I had went to jail with him that night. And our guy, our dope man, our guy that we got our drugs from, I knew would come and get me and have drugs for me. So I called him, and he came and got me, and he had drugs for me because I was sick. I was on heroin at that point in time, so I was very ill and I felt like shit. And he came and got me. He gave me drugs. He got me a room for rent over on St. Louis Ave, which, if anybody knows St. Louis, was not a very good area for a little white girl that was like 18 years old. Then I ended up moving in with him, and eventually later on married my drug dealer. That was a very toxic relationship.
And how long did you guys date or marry, or in totality, the relationship?
In totality, I would say 2.5 years. We were together for about 2 years before he like came home and was like, "Hey, you want to get married?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever." Like, wasn't even like oh my God, like it wasn't real. To me, it was all fake. To me, we weren't even married. I mean, come to find out, we actually were. I had to get a divorce out here in New Jersey, so.
And
But
these are parts, honestly. I mean, I know we worked together for a while, but I don't even remember them. I mean, I don't. I think the two biggest things that I remember is I definitely knew that you had, the hip issues, and I knew that you were taking medicine, whatever that was, but it's some of those things, it's been so long that I just don't remember that.
well, I definitely tried to say that I just took Vicodin for my hip and this and that, but really I was doing heroin.
Right. I mean, I figured most people addicted to drugs aren't going to come out and say the list. They're going to say probably the least harsh thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
What made you hit rock bottom? What made you get sober?
All right. So I was dating an extremely older man at this point in time who was a jeweler, and I also worked for a jeweler at that point in time, which was like my only job outside of the restaurant industry ever. The guy that I worked for one day looked at my jacket, did whatever, found needles, and was like, "Look, like, you really need to get help, Deanna. Like, I knew something was up with you, like, sat me down, like." And this was a guy that I kind of looked up to, somebody that I felt like actually truly cared about me. So I guess I took what he said to heart. And that day, instead of working, I sat in the back office and called rehabs. The guy that I was dating was one of his friends, and he helped me and covered whatever, costs I didn't have to get me into the rehab. The only one that I could get into at the time, since I was living at my grandparents' house in Illinois, was a rehab in Illinois. It was called Gateway. It was in Caseyville, Illinois, and I went in there. Kind of wanted to, kind of didn't want to, but I knew I had to do something. And I stayed the full time, and they actually talked me into there going to a place called Core in Branson, which was a sober living with like strict rules, like you couldn't leave the house without checking with somebody, like very strict rules, like they kept a tight leash on you. I went there, and while I was there, I relapsed again. It was during that 2-day long relapse that it really hit me. So I relapsed the day before. My mother, my sister, and her friend were coming down to see me. My sister at this point in time was 16 years old. That morning, like I didn't come home that night until like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was wasted. And so my house manager the next morning, called like the lady who ran it, and she called my mom, and my mom was already driving down from Missouri. I just left the house and was in a hotel room with some guy I met at the bar the night before doing meth. And when my mom started calling me, that like feeling I had in my stomach of not wanting to disappoint her again, and then the look on my sister's face when when I finally did meet up with them, just really tore me down. It really, like, I just couldn't stand to disappoint them once again. And then seeing the look on her face and thinking about what my grandmother will think just really ate me up. And that next day, I started calling every single place that I possibly could that I could find. And I got two places. One could fly me out in 2 days, one could fly me out next day. So one of them was actually the Missouri Network for Reform that Chad Sabora runs in Missouri. And the other one was just some place I found online, Coast to Coast Recovery. And that was the one that I went with that flew me out the next day. I, of course, missed my flight because I was at the bar drinking. It was at, like, then, I walk out of the airport because I can't get another flight till the next morning. I'm at Lambert at the airport, and I had two choices there. I can call my drug dealer and get high, or I can call my grandparents and I can go home. And I called my grandma, and I went home, and I got on my flight the next morning, and I came to New Jersey. And that right there, like that, like really hits home with me right there, because I definitely chose my family over drugs finally.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. So it sounded like, I know those couple days sounded really rough. You were sober and then all of a sudden you weren't sober and then you were
Yes.
sober and then you weren't. Going back to the night that you were in Branson, what made you get high or drink, or even that night? Did you know that your mom and sister were coming there? Do you remember why you wanted to get high?
I did know that they were coming, yes. Again, the guy I was dating, he had relapsed the night before. I was on the phone with him, and I just like there was just this overwhelming feeling that like I want to feel that too. Like I was on a video chat with him, and I was like, I want to feel that too. Like what the hell? Why can't I do that? Like I've been clean for this long, which was the longest period of time I ever had, was 69 days. And I was like, I want to get high too. Like if he can do it, why can't I? And so that next day I called him and I was like, so you got any more or what? Like what's going, and I went and I got some heroin from him, and I did it, and I went to work and everything was fine. I thought, it was going to be great, but then once I started coming down and I wasn't feeling too well, I was like at work. So I was like, guys, you want to go get some drinks? And they're like, you can't drink. And I'm like, yeah, I can, whatever. And then we went and got drunk. Again, a man, a guy in my life that I wanted to feel like I could do it too, or I don't know.
I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like. Is maybe if they weren't there, you maybe would have been sober a lot earlier on. But when you have that other person that you're kind of codependent on, or,
Yep.
after you got back to St. Louis and you were with your grandma, that's when you made it out to New Jersey.
Yes.
And that's where the rehab was there.
Yes.
And are you still in New Jersey?
Yes.
Tell me how long you have been sober at this point. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. I was actually introduced to BetterHelp by my boyfriend because earlier this year I was in such a deep, dark depression and I didn't know what to do. I had to literally text him to tell him what was going on with me because I was so ashamed that I was sad and I didn't even want to ask for help, and texting was the easiest way that I could do that. And that night, we literally signed me up to do BetterHelp. That's just a little bit of my story, and I feel like if this can help somebody else with struggling of feeling alone and not asking for help, that's why I want to talk about their service. So BetterHelp is the leading provider of online counseling, which is exactly what I loved about them, is that it was online. And there's 4 ways that you can talk to your counselor. You can do a video session, there's phone calls, live chat, and messaging. And every counselor is licensed by their respective state and has over 3,000 hours of experience. BetterHelp is worldwide, so you can access them from any country, and there's counselors that will speak a wide variety of different languages. And you're going to be matched with a counselor within 24 hours or less. When being matched with your counselor, it's not a one-size-fits-all, so you do have the choices of picking the type of counselor. If you want a male or female counselor, if you want a counselor that's a little bit older, you are going to have options that fit your specific needs. You can message them anytime, day or night, and they get back to you in a timely fashion. What I also love is BetterHelp offers a broad expertise in their network, so it provides users with access to specialists that they might not be able to find locally. BetterHelp is not a crisis line, but it's a place where you can speak to a therapist if you are in need of help. The most important thing to me was the affordability, and that's exactly what BetterHelp is. They do make it affordable for people, especially in these times right now. And if you can't, they do have financial aid for those people that do qualify. So visit betterhelp.com/brightsideoflife. That's betterhelp.com/brightsideoflife. Join over 500,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And for your first month, you're going to receive 10% off by being a listener of The Bright Side of Life. So let them know that I sent you by using the link betterhelp.com/brightsideoflife. That's betterhelp.com/BRIGHT side of life. The link will also be in the description section of this episode.
15 days shy of 4 years.
That is amazing.
Yes,
Congratulations. That is a very, very big feat. Tell me about these past 4 years and what sobriety looks like for you.
So I moved out here to New Jersey September 12th of 2016, and I went to a rehab. I wasn't really like that sick this time or anything because I had just done the heroin once, so it wasn't really that bad of like a detox or anything. So I feel like with that alone, I was able to focus a little bit more on actually getting myself clean versus not being sick anymore. I actually paid attention in groups, and I really loved my counselor that I had. Actually, he technically wasn't my counselor. My counselor I wasn't a big fan of, so I kind of just adopted another one. His name was Idris. He's like big black man with a wonderful accent and just truly cared about all of us. I would, go in his office and talk to him, and when it came time to me like having to find somewhere else to go, where was I going to go next? He looked at me and he was like, Deanna, you cannot go to an Oxford house. You need more structure. I was like, no, I don't. I'll be fine. He's like, no, you need more structure. I know the place you're going. I know where I'm sending you to. So he sent me to RPS, which was, I don't even remember what it stands for, something. It's actually not around anymore. But he sent me to RPS. I was there for, a couple days before I actually started feeling like comfortable in there, and then opening up, and then started making friends out here, and was going to meetings left and right, and started making a network and got a sponsor. And, first thing my sponsor said to me You need at least a year before you get into any relationship, Deanna. You have something with men. I'm like, yeah, no shit. After, building a network out here and friends and having a sponsor and all of that, like I really finally for once felt like I could work on myself and get better and do better and succeed. I finally felt like I could succeed. I just turned 30 August 9th, and I never thought that I would ever see 30. I thought that I would definitely be dead before I was 30 years old. Like it was an amazing feeling to finally feel like I think I will actually make it through this. I think I will actually live.
That's awesome. And happy birthday. We share very
Thank
close
you.
birthdays. Mine's the
Yes.
13th. So I think we knew that, but of course we forgot it. Happy 30th birthday. You're a little bit, excuse me, younger than I am.
Not much.
No, not much. Only 5 years, but who's counting? Okay, so that was your sponsor told you that you didn't need a relationship for a year. And
Which she
then
was right.
and did you keep to that or no?
I did. I did. Okay, I was 14 days shy when me and my now fiance, when he actually asked me, like, will you be my girlfriend?
Yeah.
Which was the cutest thing ever. I don't remember the last time I was asked that. So
How did you meet him?
he is in recovery as well. So RPS, after being there for 4 months, they actually made me a house manager, which made me feel great about myself, made me, again, feel like I could actually succeed in life and really put like a pep in my step to keep doing what I was doing. Well, he was a house manager at the guy's house. Guys and girls live separately, obviously. So he was the manager at the guy's house. He actually started overseeing the girls' house the summer of 2017. And that's when like me and him actually like met and started talking and whatnot through the houses, through mutual friends. He has a year and a half more time than I do. So like he really, he was a house manager. He was also overseeing the girls' house. He had like money in the houses to where, like he was getting money back every month. He had bought into the company and like he really, had his life going and had his life together and really truly seemed like he wanted to continue on this journey. That was really awesome. And then I got to know him and fell in love and all that stuff.
Do you guys go to meetings together? Do you guys talk about your sobriety? Do you work through your struggles together? That was a lot of questions at once, but
No, you're fine. I've never been to a meeting with him. No, I personally don't think that that's exactly healthy for the relationship because, what if you got, a little animosity going on with him that, you need to get out at a meeting or, I've never been to a meeting with him. And he primarily did AA, whereas I do NA.
maybe some of the listeners that don't know, if you can just explain the difference between AA and NA.
So AA is Alcoholics Anonymous, which is they go off of a different book than NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. AA steps are a little bit different versus NA steps. Some of the like if I went to an AA meeting and said like, "Hi, I'm Deanna, I'm an addict," people kind of give you a look like, "What?" Like this is an AA meeting. You're supposed to say I'm an alcoholic. Versus if an alcoholic came to an NA meeting, we don't care what you say as long as you're there. Like they're a little bit more old school and like very follow the rules, which is nothing wrong with that. I just preferred the NA where it was a little bit more laid back and I felt like I could be myself a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we
So,
do absolutely talk about everything together. If something's going on, like I know I can talk to him about it. We can have each other's back. And that's great to have somebody else that's in recovery as my significant other.
right. Do you still have days of that are hard that you still wish you could use and drink?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am a restaurant manager. I definitely have days where, like I'm just walking past like the bar and I'm like, damn, it's nice outside. That margarita looks really good. Like I definitely have those days. But then I'm like, Deanna, you don't need that. Like I talk myself through it. Or if it's really bad, I call my sponsor. But most of the time I can just, oh, you're fine. You don't need that. Like I can nowadays, tell myself no, like a child.
Yeah. When you did get sober, do you remember a moment that you knew that this was way better than all the days that you being high and drunk, that you just knew this is so much better?
I would have to say my first summer here in New Jersey, because it's definitely isn't something that comes quickly into recovery. It's definitely something that, the first couple of months, they suck. You're trying to get your family to talk to you again. You're trying to get a job that, will pay your bills, but then you also have to like remember in your head, like I definitely made more money when I was using drugs than I do now. But that's because I was striving so much more for it because I had to get high. If I didn't get high, it was, I was going to be sick. And so I had more of a drive for it, I guess. So I would definitely say like my first summer in New Jersey, when I was able to go to the beach with a bunch of the girls from the house, and we could just lay out and play in the water and like actually enjoy ourselves. And I woke up the next morning and I remembered every last bit of it. And I have pictures and I don't look like a wasted girl on the beach, like I actually truly started like feeling, how good life could be. I could do this and not feel like shit the next day and still be able to go to work, still be able to function. Like it was truly grand. It really was, just knowing like, wow, this is how my life can be
Right.
forever.
Yeah. So are a lot of your friends now from the program, or do you kind of have a mixture, or?
Definitely a mixture, simply because I spend most of my time at the restaurant. So a lot of my friends are there. Some of them actually are in recovery as well, which is one reason why I love the company I work for, because we are very diverse and it's not like the bar scenes that I was used to where, everybody was drinking and this and that. We have a couple that go out and party, but a lot of us are just, chill. Like even servers and bartenders that like don't drink. Like it's almost unheard of. But we have a lot of that throughout our whole company and a lot of people that are in recovery as well. So I would say like a good mixture, like I definitely have friends at work that do drink, but it's not like they're out using heroin or cocaine every night, like they just drink here and there. But then I have ones that are hardcore in recovery like me. So
Right. How long did you live at that house that you were in?
I was there for 2.5 years before me and my fiance moved in together. We were together for a year and a half before we moved in together. And we got an apartment not far from where we lived, simply for the aspect of like, I don't want to move far and then not be able to still be connected to everybody that I know and my sponsor. And, like, because moving out can be a struggle and can really hit some nerves. And it did for me, simply because the day we moved out was the day that we all kind of found out that the owner of the place was actually doing drugs himself. The whole place got shut down. And then he tried to reopen like a small little girl's house. So I still knew some of them there. And I tried to go over and help them out to continue to give back to help me as I'm moving out and trying to get on my feet. And I was told that I wasn't allowed there because I was against him because I knew he was doing the drugs. So like I was part of that. Then, he didn't want me around any of the girls because I was against him. And I'm like, I'm just here for the girls. I don't care what you do. I want to help them. And being told that I wasn't allowed to do that really, like, that put me in like a depression for like a week. Like I didn't know what else to do with myself. Like, so now I'm stuck in my apartment by myself. I can't hang out with anybody that I just lived with. Like it was rough, but I made it through. That was good. But moving out was hard. It was definitely hard. But we're little under a year and a half out, and I'm doing good. So
Yeah, that's awesome. How long did you know that the owner of that house was doing drugs? Was it something that you had known for a while, but it didn't really affect you?
Yeah, it was definitely something I knew for a while. Him and his girlfriend at the time. It didn't really affect me though. He had more involvement with the guy's house than he did with the girl's house, but my now fiance lived at the guy's house. So I knew all of this information because he would see it. And then sometimes the girlfriend would come over to our house and I'd just look at like my other manager and I'd be like, dude, she's nodding out right now. Like she's high. We just did our best at shielding our girls from it and trying to stay face and keep it all together. But eventually it of course comes back to bite you and it did. It was something that I did definitely know, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to move out. I mean, there was nothing we could do about it except for try to continue to help everybody that lived in the houses, which was, why we managed, why we did what we did.
Right. Now, obviously, I don't know his role at all or how big of a part a role that he did play. You said he was mostly in the guy's house, but I guess when somebody does own something or they're supposed to kind of be the face of this company and then come to find out, you're doing all this hard work to stay clean and sober only to find out that this person is doing that and for, who knows how long. I can only imagine that it can seem a little bit defeating. And then like you said, you were further along, but there were probably girls that had just moved in and you want to keep them safe and not let them see it because that could send them down a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother spiral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really sucked. It really sucked because that place helped me so much and it got me to where I am today. But then, to find out that he couldn't fight off his demons as well as the rest of us that were, managing the houses that had significant time clean, it sucked. And I know even more so for my fiance because he was pretty close with him at one point in time. He even sponsored him at one point in time. So like it was hard. I mean, it's kind of one of those, like it is what it is. We got to do our best to kind of just push through and try to continue to help people. I would say one thing I've definitely learned in recovery is how to not freak out, to keep my cool, and to just try to figure it out. Figure, don't let anybody see you sweat, because I guess I learned that more in that house more than I did in recovery actually because of what was going on there. It's definitely helped me through being a restaurant manager, not letting anybody see me sweat and just, okay guys, we got this, all right? It's okay, we'll figure it out.
Right. I know that you said that you relapsed a couple times, and I'm sure you have seen it a lot of people come in the program, then they leave. People that you probably even were friends with forever, and you for sure thought they were going to be sober for the rest of their lives. Kind of a two-part question is, how did you feel when you did that? But then B, I guess when you see a friend that you love so much and you've tried to help so much do that, what is that like? What is that feeling? Is it anger? Is it, you knew they could make it and it's so hard because, yeah, I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but what is that like?
I mean, I guess first part would be, every time I relapsed, I thought, that's on me. It's not on you. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you mad? Why are you this, that? Like, I'll figure it out. I'll eventually get better, whatever. I never thought of anybody else's feelings because, I was in my addiction. My focus was on something else. And then being a house manager in that house, I have seen more girls relapse than I want to say, and I've seen more die than I wanted to see. It's, first time, oh, screw it, I'm going to go use and die. And it's one of the hardest things when you get close to them. I have a few that I can never let go. And at first, I was extremely angry because I knew that they could do it. I knew that they had it in them, but they didn't believe in themselves, and I was extremely angry, which is definitely hypocritical of me because I did it in the past. But just knowing, the one girl had a 2-month-old baby. The other one was 19. They had their whole lives ahead of them. I watched them relapse in my house many times. And then they finally got time clean and went back out one more time and didn't make it. After a while, you kind of get less angry and then are sad. I mean, it's a whole grieving process, even if they don't die. it's still like the whole grieving process because you're angry. Why did you do that? And then, you're sad and you just want to help. And then, you finally, get them back a couple days clean or whatever. And then it's just the nurturing part of it. Like, okay, we can do this. Like, I'll take you to meetings. I'll do this. If you need food, if you need water, if like whatever you need, I'm here. Like it was definitely strenuous living in that house. I definitely grew some gray hairs living in that house and watching it all. Before I was 30, I had gray hairs and I was not happy about it. But to see the ones that are still doing good is all worth it.
Yeah. I guess that comes to my question of what is advice that you can give to people that are currently struggling with alcoholism, with drug addiction, being, where you are now and what everything that you have been through?
You have to be ready. If you're not ready, it's not worth wasting anybody's time versus it be your family or the people at the rehab that you're going to go to or counselors or an IOP that you're going to go to. Like it's not worth wasting any other time unless you're ready. You have to mentally be ready to actually go into recovery. I tried to do it many times before I was ready and it got me nowhere. And I truly feel like I wasted a lot of people's times. And when you are ready, you just have to reach out. There are so many helplines right now with people that will listen to anything you have to say. And a lot of people don't like doing that. Okay, go find a meeting. Go in person, find a meeting. Just say, look, I have 0 days clean, but I want to get there. I guarantee you will have at least 2 people, at least, that are over at you trying to get you in somewhere. They will call in favors, they will call rehabs for you, they will do anything. Like in recovery, we are truly some of the most helpful people when it comes to another addict. We want to see you get better. We will do anything to help get you there. And you have to do it on your own. Like you don't want to tell your mom and then your mom does all the work, like you want to do it on your own, because when somebody else is doing it for you, it's not as real. It's not as invigorating to yourself. You don't actually feel like you're doing it for yourself. It then feels more like it's for the family or for this person or that person. Like you have to actually do it yourself. If my mom would have made those calls that day instead of me while I was sitting in Branson at a motel, I don't think I would actually be where I am today. But I put in that footwork and I put in the calls and I put in the tears to make it here. And I think that is one of the reasons why I am still clean today. Wholeheartedly, I do.
Right. I think this next question is a rhetorical question because you said they have to be ready. Do you think that anybody can do it for somebody else? Say your mom wanted you to get clean, but you didn't.
I mean, you can maybe get 30 days like that, maybe, but you're not going to get any substantial amount of time like that in all reality. You can't do it for your kids. You can't do it for your husband. You can't do it for your family. You have to want to do it for yourself. If you don't, you're eventually going to A, relapse, and B, resent the people that you tried to do it for.
Right. You said earlier, don't go before you're ready. What makes somebody ready?
I mean, for everybody, it's definitely different. For me, it was the looks on my family's faces, and the feeling that I had in my gut and in my whole body. Like I felt like I can't do this anymore. Like I just had, 69 days, which is a lot of time in a normal person's mind, but in an addict's mind, that felt like 6 months. And I felt amazing. I felt good, my body, my mind, I just let it go. But it was like the feeling of, like I can't keep going on like this. I was tired. I was wore out. I did not want to go back on a run. I didn't want to go back to having to hustle every day to get money, to having to work 3 jobs to support my habit, like to having to do other things that I would not ever mention out loud that I had to do to be able to survive another day getting high. I couldn't imagine doing it again after having them couple months. Some people, it's losing a very good friend of yours that, you were drug buddies with. Some people, it's just almost dying from an overdose. Everybody's kind of different, but I think that we all get that feeling in our stomach when we know it's time, when we know we're ready. Unless you're truly feeling that drive, it really, like, yeah, you can try it again, but unless you're truly feeling it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And I know that's sad to say, but in all reality, it's the truth. I've seen it where people come in, they're like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I can do this. I got to do it for my mom, man. And then in 36 days, they're out the door, like, okay. Like,
Right.
you could kind of tell.
Yep. What would be some good resources for people that want to get clean and want to get sober?
So, like I had said earlier, I use Coast to Coast Recovery. They were the ones that flew me to New Jersey, and I missed my flight, and they even covered the cost of the next one the next morning. I mean, they were amazing, and they made, like, I called them. They called. They got the plane tickets. They called the rehab. They set it up. So all I had to do was get on the plane, get in the van, and get out of the van and walk into the rehab. Like, that was what I had to do. They were amazing. Another one, though, that is strictly out of St. Louis is the Missouri Network for Opiate Reform and Recovery, which is ran by Chad Sabora, which is an amazing, amazing man in Missouri that truly helps out addicts and families of addicts as well. They also do the Nar-Anon and Al-Anon meetings for the family. And he also has Sana Lake. I don't really know how you pronounce it. Recovery. It's in Dittmer. He does a lot with that rehab, or he opened that rehab himself. I'm not quite positive on that. And then he also works with Discovery Institute out here in New Jersey, which is a great rehab out here. I've gotten quite a few clients from there. My fiance went there. It's a great rehab that he will fly you to there and everything, just like the Coast to Coast Recovery did. If you're looking for somewhere that is not right in the area where you used to get high, which unfortunately is where a lot of the other rehabs in Missouri are, like Harris House, which is going to be in downtown St. Louis, and Bridgeway, which is going to be right smack dab in the middle of the South Side, where a lot of people, do drugs. Sometimes it's hard to still be in those areas while you're trying to get clean, which it was for me. I tried multiple times, which is why I said, you know what? Yeah, you want to fly me to New Jersey? Sure, why not? Let's do it. What is it going to hurt? And that's where, I say that drive. Like, I was willing to get on a plane and drive and fly 1,000 miles away just to get clean. Like, whatever it took, I was ready. I was down for whatever.
Yeah, these are great. I can post all that stuff in the show notes so they can have access to all those resources. I actually, however you say it, Sana Lake or Santa Lake, I'm almost positive I've drove by that in Dittmer. It looks beautiful.
It is. It is. It's very gorgeous. I mean, I've never been there myself. It's something that he started while I was out here. My mom actually has worked closely with Chad Sabora and gone to meetings and some of his talks that he's done. And I have been to talks that he's done out here in New Jersey. Considering he works with Discovery Institute, he did a talk about the opiate reform and recovery and about the needle drop-off sites and things like that, that kind of help people from, like, yes, you're using, you're not ready to get clean yet. So here's a needle exchange for you, so you don't have to continue to use these old dirty needles and end up with hepatitis C or HIV. They have things like this for people because if you're not ready, you're not ready. You're going to continue to use. So the best thing you can do is try to stay as healthy as you can while you do it, and I went and saw him speak out here in connection with Discovery Institute on those subjects. He's a great guy, and he is always willing to help anybody.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
yeah.
What do you have?
I was just going to say, I mean, I have like the numbers for Coast to Coast Recovery in the Missouri network for opiate reform, but if you're going to post links, then you don't need those.
Yeah, I'll get that information from you. Are there any resources or any advice for family members that are dealing with, I don't even want to say dealing, that's not a good word, but that know an addict, what resources and what advice can you give them? Because I know they're often hurting a lot of times and they feel helpless
Yes.
and they don't have control and they don't know what to do.
Yes, absolutely. My grandma and my mother both went to Nar-Anon and Al-Anon meetings, which are Nar-Anon is for narcotics, Al-Anon is for alcoholism, and they have them all over, really. My grandma did them at her church. My mom went to some that were with the Missouri Network for Opiate Reform and Recovery, which is in St. Louis. I'm not exactly sure where his building is. You can go to a website to find an AA meeting. You can go to a website to find Al-Anon and Nar-Anon as well. And they will tell you all of the ones in your area. I'm not exactly positive what that website name is,
Sure.
but probably naranon.org or .com or something like that.
Nothing you
And
can't find on Google.
right. They have them all over, though. Places that you would never even imagine. Now, next time you drive past, you're going to go, oh, that's where all those cars are there. They're probably having an Al-Anon meeting, like those poor people, or, like my heart goes out to them. Like, really, like you would never even imagine where some of like the meetings are. Like it's amazing to see. And then every time you drive past from then on out, it's like, oh, wow.
Right.
And now that place can hold a special place in your heart. Like those people really helped me. But I mean, they have them all over and they are truly, truly helpful. My grandma, I think, has finally stopped going, but she did for at least the first 3 years of my recovery. And she loved those ladies and talking to them. And then as I, got better, telling them how great I was doing. And like, it just, it really, she would call me after everyone and tell me about it and how excited she was. And, oh, well, so-and-so's son is finally doing good. And, like she truly loved it. And it definitely helps for the families and helps them know that there's other people out there going through the same exact thing. It's not just you. I know it feels so alone when you're going through it because it's not something that you want to broadcast to the world. Like, oh, my child's a heroin addict, or, like it's not something you want to broadcast to the world. So that's why they have these separate meetings for people to be able to talk about everything.
Do you feel that Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, which is new to me, I hadn't even heard of that one. Do you feel that it helps educate also family members? I feel like sometimes family members are just like, Deanna, why can't you just get sober? Why can't you just get clean? I just don't understand. And I feel like the education and removing themselves from the situation and taking a look back and finding out from other people and professionals, like this is way beyond sometimes, Deanna and people's addiction. There's education involved in understanding all of that.
Absolutely. My grandma learned a lot from those meetings, and she would call me and be like, oh my gosh, now I understand this. Now I understand that. Like, there is definitely an education factor there, like kind of just learning a little bit behind it. I know when I was in Gateway in Caseyville, I learned like I love that place because they were very educational on the fact of the disease of addiction. Like they really actually taught you about it, like how the brain works and why it is a disease, because that is still an argument to this day on if addiction is a disease or not, and like how it actually is like something different in your brain and not just a one. It's
Yep.
literally there. My grandma learned a lot though, and she still talks about it, and she now feels like she can help others. So when there's a lady at her church or something now that's having issues with her son, she's the first one to go over because she feels like she's learned so much and now she wants to help others.
That's really awesome. All right, so I just have one last question for you. This podcast is called The Bright Side of Life. So Deanna, in your own words, what would your definition of the bright side of life be?
I would say, honestly, being an addict in recovery, we truly, considering, how I said earlier, like we strive so much to get our drugs, putting that into just regular daily life. Like I went to a recovery house was made manager in 4 months. I've worked 2 different jobs out here that I was made a manager within 6 months of working there. Like, I have that strive and that goal in life, and I know what I want. I'm not scared to go for it, and I'm not scared to speak my mind for it, to be able to have a significant other that supports me in everything I do, that I'm going to marry next year, and my beautiful dog that I now have. Just everything that I have gained from being in recovery, to me, is the bright side of life. Coming from where I was, and now everything that I have gained and everything that I have, not material things, but my family, my future husband, my wonderful dog, my great job, my friends. I'm just so happy with my life right now and where I am. Like, I literally couldn't be any happier. Like, I really couldn't ask for anything else. It's great.
Deanna, you deserve all of it. You should be extremely, extremely proud of yourself. I'm sure it has not been easy for you, but 4 years, like you said, even 60 something days felt like 6 months. So 4 years has to feel like an incredible feat, and you should be extremely, extremely proud of yourself. And I am proud of you.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Bright Side of Life. I hope you enjoyed Deanna's story. It's so great that she was able to find recovery, and now she's the happiest she's ever been. I wish her nothing but the best. And it means a lot to me that you're here too. If you like this or any of the episodes, be sure to subscribe. Lastly, if you know someone that may need to hear this story, please share it with them. We never know if this is the one that puts hope back in their heart.